What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome in to another episode of the Triple Play Fantasy Football Show, sponsored by Underdog and part of the Underdog Fantasy family. D. Mendy here, coming at you guys with a special bonus episode with a special guest that will take your breath away. We welcome in a man that when it comes to fantasy football, TV or family, he always has a plan. He's now hosting NFL Live, a gig that he landed because of his drive. You've heard him on the Fantasy Focus football podcast that I listen to twice as fast. He co-hosts alongside Daniel Dopp, Stephania Bell, and Mike Clay. They gave league-winning advice to keep the haters at bay. What else does he do? Oh, well, he's an NFL insider too. Most importantly, he's a husband and a father. And if you think you can see pictures of Cisco and Kinley and not like them, don't even bother. Welcome to the man that in the gym, he can move all the weights. What's going on to my friend, Field Yates? What's up, man?
First of all, unbelievable introduction. The best I've ever had for a podcast there. Only one correction. Not sure I can move all the weight. I wish, but you're the one here out of the two of us that has the authority to brag about your physical fitness. So I am definitely second when it comes to podcast hosts and how jacked they are, or a podcast guest and how jacked they are on this very show.
I don't know, man. I know you hit the gym pretty much every day. You do your thing.
More for my mental wellness now these days, though, right? Like you're still gaining. I am not gaining much anymore. At least it does not feel that way. At least
I don't know, man. I still think that you're not giving yourself enough credit. But I at the same time too, I do want to thank you. Obviously, the shows that you've come on where we've kind of hung out for a little bit have always been my favorite. And I gotta say, once I sent the DM and you accepted, this was my feeling.
Is ready.
There we go. Wow.
I was amped, man.
Man, I need to borrow your production value because I can barely create a Zoom meeting. Like I am so lost in this space. So I might have to do a 30-minute tutorial with you before your child arrives so I can get a little bit more adept at putting together a meaningful podcast.
Dude, you guys do such an amazing job. I think it's enough in itself that you have people talking in your ear when you're trying to talk about a million different things going on the show. You got to manage the personalities that you've got with you. You've got to make sure the conversation flows. You do so much. So I mean, again, you're the top of the top. I just try to at least do a little bit of what you're doing.
No, you're coming for the throne, man. Is all I can say. So I appreciate all that you've had to say so far, and look at the growth. I mean, think about where we were the first time we did a show together, which was probably 2 or 3 years ago, right? Yeah. I mean, and I'm not just talking about where you are from a life standpoint, married, about to become a dad, probably shooting about 76 on 18 these days.
Dude,
right?
I wish.
Think about where we were the first time we talked when it was just a couple of puppies in the fantasy industry.
Yeah, man. Are you still playing golf? Are you getting out there?
Yeah. We'll talk about it more during the show. Not to spoil the answer to one of the questions that I know we're going to be discussing. But
yeah,
still playing not very well. But I like the guys who are playing. We're having this conversation in the middle of the first round of the PGA Championship. Mm-hmm. I just want those guys to feel no threat that I'm coming for their job. That's where I stay exactly where I am as a golfer.
Well, Phil plays golf. Obviously, you guys know him mostly. You see him on ESPN, giving amazing, not just fantasy football advice, real football analysis, everything under the sun. So I brought Field on today to not just talk life, fantasy football, everything. We're here to talk Field's favorites. That's why I believe that was a segment on your guys' show a little while
we did that
back.
last year. I got to see if I'm going to do. I assume I'll do it again this year. It was very, very straightforward. It was players that, as we got closer and closer to the regular season, I just found myself with a growing affinity for. It wasn't, just Christian McCaffrey and Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase and Devontae Adams. It was guys at various points in drafts, whether it was players being taken in the 7th round or the 17th round or somewhere in between. So that was the idea. I have some ideas right now of who would make my proverbial short list, but I think we need to get closer to training camp because I do feel like there is the added benefit when guys are actually back in pads and you get some beat reporter analysis on a day in and day out basis. And that's the kind of stuff that I think helps me formulate that list.
Get as much information as possible because once you're out there, everybody's going to come for if it's right or wrong. So you want to make sure you have all the information available. I totally get it. But let's get it started. Let's hop in. And I tried to alternate questions between fantasy football and life. So that way we can switch topics here. So number one, favorite rookie drafted after the first round for redraft fantasy football this year.
Okay, so I'm not going to be a wet blanket, but I will say this was not a great draft for rookies outside of the first round, right? There are a couple of potential superstars in the first round. I'd say the two that come to mind for me most frequently, not just Bijan Robinson, and actually the three, because obviously Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs are going to be very, very valuable for their respective teams. I think Jordan Addison has a chance to be really valuable for Minnesota as well, because the role is the most clearly defined of those four wide receivers that went back to back to back to back. But outside the first round, I've got four names that I wrote down here, and I'll list them, and then I'll give you a little blurb. Is Jonathan Mingo, who went early in the second round of the Panthers, Rashee Rice, who went in the second round of the Chiefs after a trade up, Tank Dell from the Texans, third-round pick out of Houston, stays in Houston, and then Jalen Hyatt, the third-round pick out of Tennessee, who goes to the Giants. And the spot's very cushy for both Hyatt and Mingo and Rice. Dell, he'll play, but I do have some question marks about just how potent this offense will be with a rookie quarterback and a lot of new faces there in Houston. But I think that Mingo, Rashee Rice, and Hyatt all have a chance to play a lot of snaps for an offense that could use that help in a major way. With Mingo, he might end up being the most talented receiver sooner than later, right? It's competition with Adam Thielen and DJ Chark. Rashee Rice, it's the Patrick Mahomes effect. There's no guarantee, but if you're playing with Patrick Mahomes and you emerge, which the Chiefs really haven't had a guy since Tyreek Hill, I guess it's only been one season, but like it wasn't like last year they had this absolute, freight train wide receiver who you had to play week in and week out. Their best receiver was Juju Smith-Schuster, but he was more solid than spectacular. I'm not sure that Rashee Rice is going to reach spectacular this year, but if I had to pick a quarterback that I was going to blindly attach any wide receiver to, it would be Patrick Mahomes. And then Jalen Hyatt, that Giants wide receiver room is certainly beefed up, but they've had a bunch of guys. They've added a bunch of guys that play in the slot mostly, which Hyatt did some at Tennessee as well, but guys without a whole lot of size, whether it's Wan'Dale Robinson, who they drafted in the second round last year, whether it's Paris Campbell, who doesn't have nearly the size of Jalen Hyatt, and Ida as well. So those are four names that come to mind for me, three in particular that I like.
It's interesting too with the Giants wide receiver room. Jalen Hyatt could be the number one or he could be the number 5. Like we don't know because with Shepard coming back, with Wan'Dale Robinson coming back, and obviously like they have so many guys there. Obviously you would expect Darren Waller to be the number 1 target getter, but there's so much uncertainty there. So it's a big range of outcomes for him.
And Daniel Jones only threw 15 touchdown passes last year, which Daniel Jones was awesome for fantasy because of his rushing upside. I think that number will grow from 15 touchdown passes, but it could go up by 50% or even 60% and still be in that 22 to 25 passing touchdown mark, which if you think about that, if Patrick Mahomes only throws 25 touchdowns this year, it would be labeled like an absolute failure for him by his own standards. So a little bit is the context, of course, of the offense that he plays in.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun to see some of these guys. And I have a feeling, would Zach Charbonnet been the number 1 if he had gone in any different spot?
There are some spots where if he landed, I would have thought that. Like as an example, if he'd gone to Arizona, my immediate thought would be, could James Conner be released or traded? You have to look at the contract when it comes to veterans, but Arizona is such a wild card right now, right? Like, what is the obvious path that they have for this year? My answer would be to go to the bottom, right? They have their own pick, which could be very valuable. They have the Texans pick next year, which could wind up being very valuable. If I'm Arizona, my mindset is don't chase average this year, especially when Kyler Murray is coming off of an ACL tear. But I think Seattle, as far as like landing spots go, I didn't think that it was like an absolute albatross for Zach Charbonnet. I thought, though, it was more like middle of the pack as opposed to a juicy spot for him to land. But I thought the fact that he was taken in the second round was notable because the mock drafts are interesting for a lot of reasons, but they can also be insightful. And if a guy goes in the 4th round, as an example, he might not necessarily be in the team's cards for that rookie season. Lots of 4th round rookies at running back and elsewhere get basically redshirted. And if Charbonnet had gone in the 4th round, it wouldn't have stunned me. The fact that he went in the 2nd round, I thought was important because it did indicate to me that he's going to have a real role in Seattle.
Yeah, and I think, people looked at it as like him and Kenneth Walker, they're just going to eat into each other's workload, but they both can thrive in a run-first offense, and Charbonnet is a great receiving profile, and sky's the limit. If, something happens to Kenneth Walker, he could be, a top 15 running back potentially. So,
yeah, the insurance policy value for Zach Charbonnet it's one of the best in the NFL right now. There are, whether it's an Alexander Madison or players like that, and that's assuming Dalvin Cook is still with Minnesota, there are some really strong insurance policies. And I think maybe Zach Charbonnet will end up being the most valuable insurance policy by the time we get to the peak of draft season.
100%. But switching gears now to you, favorite restaurant or type of food to eat?
I've been having this Mediterranean kick recently. There's a local spot in the area that we live in, Connecticut, called Zohara. Shout out Zohara. That's got to be near the top of my restaurant rankings for not just locally, but for a place that I've been to in a while as well. But I was thinking about it. The masses that are listening or watching the show are probably thinking to themselves, like, that's cool, but when is the next time I'm going to be in central Connecticut? Probably not for a while, possibly never. So what do people care about my culinary preferences in my neighborhood? So I was thinking, like, on a more, like, on a grander scale. And I realized this, and this is not going to, I know, but for someone as physically gifted and motivated as you also have you have the what's like the cheat day mentality too.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe it's a cheat meal more so than the cheat day. You're not like, maybe not going full rock, but partial rock.
His meals are legendary. Yeah.
Oh my God, they're iconic. But for me, the next time I turn down Auntie Annie's in the mall will be the first. That place,
really,
not a restaurant, but what a great snack Auntie Annie's is. I'm sure each pretzel is probably like 9,000 calories and probably 200 grams of sugar. But that cinnamon sugar, just like you can smell it from several stores down. And I'm not a big mall guy, but when I'm there, it's usually like, my wife and I like killing time during a quiet weekend or something with our daughter. Like that to me is a great way to make the mall experience worthwhile.
So I know you guys used to do, or you still do, the fantasy football marathon where you guys are up. Is that one of the things you would ask for like someone to bring you, or you would try to do to keep you awake, get the sugar rush going and everything like that?
I'd actually like in the marathon, I end up like telling myself I need like superfoods, right? So like I'll get one of those like like a shake that's like one of those like it's basically like 9 oranges, 4 bananas, 3 apples, like all compressed into a small bottle, and like it tells me that I'm actually going to get energy. I'm not sure if those things are actually healthy or not, but they taste great and they make you feel like you're healthy. So I do this stuff that might be more mind over matter. But for the marathon, I try not to have like a bunch of junk because I know I'm not going to feel great just from like an energy standpoint. I'd rather not multiply that with like not an upset stomach, but just like I don't want to be sitting on like 4 slices of pizza, right?
Yeah.
And like I love pizza. There's only one problem with pizza. You never know the right amount to eat.
Yes.
To fill you up, right? Like, is 1 piece enough? No. Is 2 enough? No. 3, maybe. It might be in certain circumstances, depending on where you're eating the pizza. But sometimes you're like, it's not enough. And you go for the 4th. And then once you finish the 4th, an hour later, you're like, 4 was definitely not necessary. But you don't know that until an hour later. I like foods that you can tell, like, whatever, I need to eat just this amount and I will likely be full for the next several hours. So I've always felt pizza and donuts are the same in that regard. You never know exactly how many or how much you want to eat.
This is kind of random, but would you do like a competition with those type of foods? Like, would you go and like, if there was like a pizza challenge, like be like, I want to eat that whole, even if I know I'm going to feel that way just to say I did it type of thing?
I think like for the experience, I would do it, but I'm not going to like, if Man vs. Food ever had like an open competition for a new host, it won't be me. It won't be me. I just feel like I actually heard Adam Richman on Part of My Take recently. It was great. It was an awesome interview and he's got like unbelievable knowledge, but hearing some of his stories, I was like, that sounds awful. Like hearing somebody eat 150 oysters. I like oysters. I don't like 150 of them in like 25 minutes.
You know, this is really off topic, and I promise I'm going to get back to what we were talking about in a second. But your episode on Pardon My Take, where you tricked
Florio way back in the day.
I think I haven't laughed that hard in I don't even know how long. I think I listened to it like 10 times.
He has not forgiven me for that. So I felt really, I did feel bad, right? Your part of you is laughing at it, but the part of you is like, oh gosh,
Yeah.
you're setting somebody else up to become the butt of a joke. But that was a great time with those guys, and that's part of what makes them the best, is they have this incredible vision that they are content machines.
They really
and that's
are.
it's probably not even fair to call them content machines because they are on a higher level than really anybody else in the entire game. So, so much respect for all of them.
They're great. They're great. And I love that they have you on. They talk about you a decent amount. It's, it's great. Those guys are awesome.
Legends.
But all right, back to football. Favorite tight end breakout this year?
It's funny. So I was looking through the list of tight ends, and it's hard to find any that you love. And this one is one we discussed it on our breakout show recently, and it was my pick. And some people were principally just against it, and then some people totally were on board with it. I think it's important to note that breakout can be a bit of a subjective term, right? So is it a guy that is going to perform better than where he was last year? Is it a guy that's never performed at a high level that's going to take it to new heights? So everybody has their own definition. So I'm going to go with Kyle Pitts. And I know he had 1,000 yards as a rookie, along with just one receiving touchdown. I know that last year was an abomination in so many ways. I'm going to choose to believe between now and the start of the regular season that it was more than anything a quarterback issue that held back the Atlanta offense last year. I saw the games. I saw the numbers of what it looked like with, at the end of the season, Desmond Ridder. I'm not convinced that the Falcons have their long-term answer at quarterback under center. I think, though, it's an upgrade over Marcus Mariota, and I think there's a chance that Bijan Robinson plus Drake London plus Kyle Pitts is enough to de-incentivize defenses to focus on just one of them. And Kyle Pitts, who on ESPN is currently going 72nd.6th overall, so basically top of the 8th round, tight end 7. Not guaranteeing anything, obviously. He is ranked tight end 7 for me, right? But if you were to imagine which tight end has the best chance for 100 catches, not named Travis Kelce or Mark Andrews, there is a fairly convincing case that it should be Kyle Pitts. I mean, he has a better chance, in my opinion, to lead his team in targets and catches than guys who are going ahead of him, or at least right around him, that include the likes of Evan Ingram, right, who is an awesome player, but you've got Christian Kirk and Calvin Ridley and Zay Jones that you are competing for targets with, TJ Hawkinson and another guy who's got obviously competition for targets in Minnesota. Those are guys who are really, really good players. It might be safer, but maybe don't necessarily have the total nuclear upside that Kyle Pitts, I think, is going to 1 year achieve. He's 22 years old. He's 22. Third season, he's still only 22.
And the fact is, too, even if you're not a believer in Desmond Ridder, Taylor Heineke is a very capable backup, and we've seen that he can get the ball to his playmakers. So, even if it comes down to that, Kyle Pitts should be able to eat, I would think.
Totally.
And Bijan Robinson's going to bring the defenses in. I'm sure he's going to touch the ball 20 times a game. So that's going to leave Pitts more single coverage, probably have better matchup advantages as well.
Totally. Yes. I hope that things are easier for the quarterback, whether it's Desmond Ridder for the entire season or eventually Taylor Heineke. I'm glad you mentioned that name, though, because, look what he did to that Washington offense in the second half of last year. It was like Terry McLaurin was reborn. So I'm going to choose to bank on the optimistic side for Kyle Pitts. By the way, you're getting him in the 8th round, right? The price you're paying is a far less steep price compared to where it was last year when people were drafting Kyle Pitts in round 2. And there's the old phrase, I'm not sure if it's one that I totally believe or not, where you can't win your draft in the first couple of rounds, but you could lose it. I think you can overcome any hole. It's just a matter of what you do with every subsequent pick. You got to be really good in later rounds, and you got to have some good waiver wire management. But obviously getting a very, very disappointing season from Kyle Pitts last year in that second round was a more difficult hole to dig yourself out of relative to other people that may have found themselves with a couple of bad picks.
Yeah, 100% agree. Now, this one's a selfish question for me because my question to you is the best place to take your daughter, Kinley, because I need to get some good ideas of where I can take my girl when she's born.
Yeah.
So
So McKinley is 16 months. So I would call her a toddler now. I don't know if that's the literal definition of when you become a toddler, but she's walking, she is talking a little bit. I mean, she doesn't say sentences yet, but she says words and she can certainly comprehend stuff, but she absolutely can exert her opinion, right? So she's going to let you know if she likes something or she doesn't like something. What I have realized since becoming a father is that you walk more in the first year of being a dad than you probably did like the entirety of your life prior to that. So, two things you got to do. You got to get used to that stroller all the time. Plenty of time to listen to podcasts or talk to your daughter if she's awake or sleeping or anything in between. And then the other thing is, I don't know that I ever have had like an eye that is a magnet for parks more than since I became a dad. And you're going to be okay timing wise because your daughter's going to be born probably like late summer if I have the my math correctly. So you're going to have several months before it starts to snow. Parks all day, every day. I mean, we go to the playground. We happen to live near one, and she comes home, and she'll come home and she'll go to the front door and just point at the door. And all she wants, because she knows that if we go out that door, we're on our way to the park. So the park is great. And then what I have found, and everything is different and regional, is that you just Google like 4 or 5 places that on the weekends, especially when things, at least during the off season, are a bit quieter, you got to have like a play space or two that you can lean on, a place where you go and there might be kids of all different ages, but it's like a mini Disney World for your kids' eyes, where they're not just interacting with other kids, but playing with toys they don't have at their own disposal and play spaces that you don't have at your disposal. So those are the kind of things that I do to find a few hours at a time that I can occupy my daughter's mind, because is the greatest thing in the world. But kids are absolutely a ton of work as well, but it's the best job that you will ever have.
And I think it's kind of interesting too. I feel like getting them in those social settings is really good from a young age, because not only will they, I'm sure, get used to just the interaction, but also the noises and the sounds and just being out in the open like that. It won't scare them.
Yes, especially the first is obviously your only one for a little while at the very least. And that interaction is not going to happen at home, right? So it's great for them to get the chance to be around other kids who are either the same age or a little bit older. I don't know if it's like trial by fire for them sometimes, but they are definitely learning when they're amongst other children.
Would you take her to, like, if you and Chapin were going to like a brewery or something, would you take her with you?
My biggest piece of advice for when your daughter is firstborn, I don't have much advice, to be honest with you, because I'm not sure that I'm qualified. I'm not sure. I might be in the bottom 5% for dads for all I know. But
no, don't say that.
I don't know. You never know, right? I haven't done the math, I guess. But we took Kinley everywhere. She was attached to our hip for the first 3 months. Even if we were going to dinner at 8:00 with friends, she'd come with us. And I hope that wasn't off-putting to other friends that we went to dinner with or patrons at the same restaurant. But at that time, they basically have zero sensitivity to noise. So it's not like being in a loud environment is going to disrupt her sleep. And for us, it was great. Like, she got out and about, and we got time with her. We were never like hiring a sitter to just sit there and watch her sleep for a few hours. And I don't know if there is data to support this or not, but at least in our mind, we felt like it helped her get ready to be out and about more. So breweries, restaurants, you name it, any public space where, places, we wouldn't go to the movies with her or something like that, but anywhere where it was okay for her to make noise, she came with us.
I think that's awesome. I know my wife was really strongly into wanting to do that as well. And I think it's great. Again, it sounds like the benefits are just so great. You guys get to still live your life. They get to experience everything. It's fantastic.
Well, like at this age, like when she's a little older, like where Kinley's at now, like when you bring them with you, like, which we still do, excuse me, you have to like pay attention to her, right? And I don't mean that you're not paying attention to your newborn, but there's a good chance that the newborn is in a baby Bjorn or in a crib, or not a crib, I should say, but in a stroller or whatever it is, and just sitting there next to you, right? And if something is up, you'll find out, because the baby will start crying. Now, when as a 16-month-old, like you put her down and she wants to run and go play with strangers or dogs or whatever it is. So a little bit different dynamic now, but early on, we felt very strongly that everywhere we went, she went as well.
That's so awesome. I love hearing that.
Yeah.
So let's ask you then next football question, your favorite running back sleeper this year.
Another thing that, and I may sound like a broken record, but like I think it's important to note that sleeper is a bit of subjective definition. You and I think, have heard of probably every running back on an NFL roster. So I'm not going to throw a name at you that you're like, wait, that guy's the fourth string running back for the Saints. That's interesting, right? No, instead what I'm looking for is I'm looking for guys that have a chance to way outperform their ADP. And a couple that I wrote down in two different tiers. One's Rashad Penny, who I know that DeAndre Swift was just traded to Philadelphia, but if Rashad Penny takes on, like, if he has interestingly enough, a Jamal Williams type role this year in Philadelphia, that could be super valuable. What it might be is like Williams a year ago, a little bit up and down and a little bit difficult to to know when to start him. But you basically just like start him every week and hope for the best. But playing behind one of, if not the best offensive lines in the NFL, they're going to score a bunch of touchdowns. Jalen Hurts might eat away at some of those, but look what Miles Sanders did last year. They had 32 rushing touchdowns in Philadelphia. He's going as RB37. He could pay off in a Jamal Williams type way. And then when I'm looking at sleepers, I'm looking for guys that either have pedigree, have a known role, have previous production, have anything, have no buzz around them. How about James Robinson? James Robinson, 2 years ago, who would have thought we'd be talking about James Robinson as a borderline roster player? But for all the good things there are to like about Ramondre Stevenson, and there are a ton, it still strikes me as like unpatriot-like for them to go into a season with just one guy who they envision to be a big part of their plans. And I think that James Robinson, you got to follow the money a little bit here, right? His health is the biggest concern here, right? And he lost a step once he was traded. Candidly, he lost a step last year. And I still, to this day, will wonder whether he was back too soon from that Achilles tear, which took place January of 2022. It was a fast turnaround. And the Jaguars got a lot out of him early, and he was playing really well. It didn't surprise me that he looked worn down by the time that he was traded to the Jets. So if he's healthy, he's got a chance. But like, if you knew that James Robinson was healthy and was close to his old self, like, he's way better than RB63, right? And good pass catcher too. So I also think that like there's a chance, when you say sleeper, there's also a chance the guy has no weekly value. So you're taking some risk here. But at RB63 and RB37, it feels like a couple of guys that can pay off for you.
I mean, they're so down low that you don't have to invest the draft capital.
No sweat off your back.
Yeah, exactly. So like at that point, you take the shot on those guys, and if they hit, they could be someone that's a very valuable piece of your team. And I like that Rashad Penny, I think the Eagles show that they like doing a lot of different running backs, and he's a career, I believe, over 5 yards per carry back.
It's one of the best ever on a yards per carry basis, which is crazy.
Yeah. So like, I mean, the talent is still there, and maybe
totally
and the difference in him now with Swift there compared to when it wasn't, his ADP is going to be a lot more realistic at this point to be able to get him at a good price too.
Yeah, he was going very high prior to the Swift trade, and there was some more risk baked in there because of the fact that he has really struggled to stay healthy. But if you're getting him in the 11th round or something like that now, wherever you wind up getting Rashad Penny, now there's just so much less risk.
Yeah, 100%. Rashad Penny, definitely somebody I'm going to be looking at as well. Favorite superpower?
All right. Well, I don't have any, so I'm not speaking from experience, but I think it would be pretty sweet to fly. I feel like it would make things a lot easier to get around. You get to the golf course really easy. You get to
sold me.
Yep. So that was the best answer I could come up with. I know some of the other obvious options there, but flying for some reason has always felt like something that would be cool to experience. I might be terrified of actually doing it if I had that superpower, but it does seem like a sweet way to get around.
And plus you wouldn't have to go like super high in the air. You could go just like high enough where it's like, oh yeah, if I fall, I'm not going to hurt myself. But like,
it's not even for, by the way, it's not for like this. I don't want to be able to fly to like Cancun right now. Right. Like I want to be able to fly to like the post office. I live in an area where downtown parking can sometimes be a pain. Right. And it's like, oh, next thing you know, you're parking a quarter of a mile away from the restaurant that you're going to. So you drive 5 minutes to walk 10 minutes. What if you could just fly like 3 minutes from the jump instead?
That would be pretty cool.
Sweet.
I like super speed a lot too. That's always been my favorite. I'm a big Flash guy, so like,
Yeah.
I think that'd be cool too because you get somewhere pretty fast as well. It's just two different ways of traveling, right?
More power squats then, right? We can build super speed.
That's true. That's true. We just haven't. I mean, maybe some machines on your quads or something like that. Like so.
But no one. I mean, again, I'm not nearly the physical fitness guru that you are, but like, you don't have to lift legs at this point in your life. You don't have to. I mean, you can, but you don't have to. Like, that was good when you were playing sports. Still, you don't have to now.
It's definitely only for the aesthetics, I think. Because if I like walk, if you walk in a room and then they see like you have like chicken legs, and then like,
yeah. But I'd rather live with like chicken legs and like Hulk arms than like well-built legs and just like, solid arms. Like I want Popeye arms one day.
I think you're already there.
Trust me. I wish I had Popeye arms. Like I want to look like Robert Turbin, who's a throwback. Go Google him one day. Most jacked NFL running back maybe ever.
Dude, his like veins had veins on top.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Robert Turbin. That comes to hear Field Yates and then also stay for the Robert Turbin talk.
I think he's doing media now for maybe CBS, I believe.
Is he really?
I think so. I think I saw him on a college football show at some point during the last season.
I feel sorry for the tailor that has to make his suits because
they just drape a cloth over them and just start sewing. That'll work, right?
Yeah. Oh man. Maybe 1 year, maybe you should do maybe I guess I don't know if ESPN will let you do it, but like do a show where you could wear like a suit but with the sleeves cut off.
Not a bad idea.
One day, maybe I don't know. Like if you're doing
McAfee
like a Halloween
works with me now. I could just say I'm following the McAfee vibe. Right?
That's right. Yeah.
I'm welcoming Pat aboard, and the only way that I know how.
Dude, that's awesome.
Pat probably does have suit. I mean, Pat has like more drip in his fingernail than I do in my entire body, so he probably could pull off a sleeveless suit. Maybe I'll just leave it to somebody who actually has like that kind of sort of confidence and drip that I definitely do not.
He's still gonna wear the black tank top every day.
I'm assuming it's going to look a lot like the show that I watch now. So
yeah.
I haven't had the chance to, talk to Pat since he was officially announced as a new ESPN employee. But I'm guessing it's going to be like what it is now, just on a different network.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's going to be a great pickup for you guys for sure.
Huge. Yeah.
For
sure.
Your favorite fantasy football trade you ever done, or the moment that will always stick in your mind, like a moment you won a week or a loss that stung you, something.
Fun one here. So championship game, I think it was 2016. It was the last time the Lions played on Monday Night Football in the late portion of the season against the Cowboys. I was in a team 6-point passing touchdown league, championship round against a guy who is, so my sister-in-law, my brother's wife, has a younger sister who's married to a great guy named Joao. We were playing in the finals, and I needed 5 touchdowns plus like yards from Dez and Zeke on Monday Night Football to win the championship game. And 6-point passing touchdown league. Zeke has like an early rushing touchdown and then like maybe another early rushing touchdown. And then Dez throws a touchdown pass, which ends up being the difference between me winning and losing. Oh my God. Dez Bryant throws a left-handed touchdown pass, win the championship. Thursday morning, I wake up, stat correction. I lose. Derek Carr had I think Derek Carr was his quarterback. This is when Derek Carr, that was like the height of Derek Carr. Yeah. And Derek Carr either loses or gains some yards. Next thing you know, I lose the championship by like 0.012 or something. I don't know, some ridiculously small margin. I'm so mad about it that I just pout. He doesn't know about it. He doesn't realize it. We're at Easter, 3-4 months later. And I told Joe, I'm still so pissed about losing that championship to you. And he was like, no, you didn't lose. He's like, you beat me. And I was like, no, I got stat corrected. You won. He was like, I won? What do you mean I won? So this league, it's family league, and there were some people in the family, not going to name names, who had no idea what they were doing and like barely set lineups. So we didn't play for anything other than pride. So 4 months later, Joao got his championship, and I was reminded once again of the stupid stat correction that cost me a championship.
Dude, that had to be so much worse that he didn't even realize he won, and you had to
know,
be the one to
like,
tell him.
Well, I was like, I would have rather you had like texted me every day for the past 3 months gloating about it, and instead you had no idea. You couldn't even enjoy it. I could have kept it to myself. I could have pretended like I never saw the stat correction.
Dude, that is brutal. I mean, you hear some bad stories. That is bad.
Yeah, it was tough. You know what though? I probably shouldn't say this, but I will. In my line of work, at least, like it's just fun, man. It's our job, no doubt, right? But like you got to ride the wave, and if I let fantasy football results define me, it's going to be a long, tough road every season. So I'd love to win every league. I'm also smart enough to realize that you play with 10 people or 12 people, 14 or 16, you do the math, right? You play with 10, you've got a 10% chance of winning. You play with 12, that number goes down to whatever it is, 7.5 or 8%. You play with 16, you've got like a 5.5, 6% chance. Maybe it's 6.5%. Like, I don't know. That's tough. That's tough in life, right? Like it's tough when you have a 6% chance. Like if you told me to make a half court shot, like it's probably about a 5 or 6% chance, right? That's what I'm doing when I'm playing fantasy football. I'm taking a half court shot. So I'm hoping that I'm going swish like Steph Curry, but you can't guarantee that. So I try to enjoy the ride as much as I do the wins and losses.
Should second place be celebrated? Like if you go to the championship?
Yeah, I think so. Especially, if it's a great season where you just steamroll to the championship. Yes. If it's an unlikely season where you squeeze into the playoffs and you get hot, also yes. This game is fun.
Yeah,
it's fun.
It is.
We should have fun with this. We should not be letting this define. We shouldn't let people sort of draw boundaries on what's allowed and what's not allowed to be cheered at.
Now, the last thing I'll ask on this is, let's say you're the 8th seed, right? And you're playing against the 1 seed.
Yeah.
And you offer to split the pot with them.
Yeah.
Is that taboo if you're like, I think I have no chance, I'm going to offer to split? Like maybe they're scared because your team is so hot. Would you ever offer that if you felt like you were the big underdog, or would you just ride it out?
I haven't yet, and I would probably ride it out, but I don't know. Like maybe I just sound like I'm living in Mayberry or something. But again, my belief is that this is for fun, and if that's what the person who's playing in the 8th seed wants to do, have at it. My own personal preference would be to play it out, but I try not to let people. I try not to define what should be done and what should be fun in fantasy football for other people.
That's got to be like on a shirt or something. What should be done and what should be fun.
That's, I kind of like that.
Yeah. Dang, look at that.
I'm going to trademark that after we're done.
All right. So you're on TV, obviously a lot. Do you have a favorite TV moment that you've been on, whether it's something you did or one of your coworkers did that you were like, it's iconic?
Yeah. It's funny. You asked me this, you sent me this question in a note a couple of days ago, and I was thinking about it, and I was like, I don't know that I have like a signature iconic moment where it was like, oh my God, I was there the minute that Adam Schefter broke the biggest story in NFL history or something, right? Or whatever, like the moment that someone won their fantasy championship, because we're not on the air during the games for the most part. So I was thinking about like some of the shows that really generate a big rush. And I've had a really good opportunity the past few years to host our Sports Center specials during free agency week. And I just think because of how much just activity and movement there is during the week of free agency, that tends to lead to some of the best moments. I'll say one that I don't know if this is the biggest one. And I'm just giving an example of a cool moment that had a lot of energy to it. But like when Christian Kirk signed with the Jaguars last offseason, which by the way, looks like a pretty darn good deal right now for both parties. It was one of those that you're like, whoa, and Shefty was getting the information and it was almost like 4 years up to $84 million. And I was like, do you want to ask another source? Are you sure about that? And obviously the answer was correct. He's Shefty. He's always right, you know, but it was sort of like, wow. And so I think anytime you have a chance to react, that's always good. But I have a blast doing fantasy football now on Sundays where we always have a great time. I love doing NFL Live, hanging in right now for Laura Rutledge, the queen of all things football at ESPN, who's on maternity leave right now. And she's the absolute best. She is a total legend. But the crew there, including Laura, Dan, Mina, RC, Swagoo, Key, you name it, it's a blast. So very fortunate, a lot of good teammates at ESPN. I never take that for granted.
You have like you said, those two different shows, the crews are awesome. So much personality. I can tell you guys genuinely enjoy working with you. It's not one of those you're like, oh, this is forced. You guys have a good time, and it makes
it's a lot of fun. It should be fun, right? It should. That should be what talking football on TV should be fun.
I actually, because I was searching for like when I was like looking up questions and like I was like I Googled your name just to like get me some ideas for things. And one of the things that I don't remember ever actually seeing, but I watched it was when during the pandemic when Cisco threw up while you were on the stream.
That actually is a good one right there. That might be it. Yeah. So I was doing a show remotely and my wife was gone. And so I had the dog with me and he's a great, great dog. I love him to death. But he came up to my office and sometimes like, he's not the kind of dog that if I just tell him to like sit downstairs and not come by me, he'll stay there. He's more inclined that if I tell him to come upstairs and let him just lay gently next to me, he will. And I think the room below this where I'm in right now, I had a tripod and he was laying totally silently, totally peacefully. And he got up, knocked the tripod, let one out, and the tripod like went back onto its axis. But you could see me kind of, if people are watching this, like I'll do it on the, I'll remake this. But it was sort of like, my eyes were wandering there for a second. So, it was a great moment. So the poor guy, he was fine. You know, I think he might have had like, I don't know, like ate something funny that day. It wasn't like he was like truly sick. He had to get something out that wasn't sitting right with him. And he just enjoyed the rest of the show right there.
I think I remember too, like your camera like shifted too. Yeah. Like it was like,
I had to kind of like, so. Yeah. A little awkward. Yeah.
Oh man. It's funny because like I didn't even remember that happened. So it was kind of funny to see that. Yeah. I've kept you way longer than I promised you. Okay. So we can end it there. That's a great story to wrap up. Field, you are the absolute man. Thank you so much for doing the show with me. It's honestly, again, I'm dead serious doing these with you. Like, I guess it's been now 3 years. It's an absolute treat for me. I can't thank you enough for your time. Thanks again for hopping on, man.
Of course. And I look forward to doing it for year 4 already. And in the meantime, we'll obviously get ready for the football season. And I'll just keep following your baseball tweets, which make absolutely no sense to me, but I'm sure they're very informative. You're talking about like, a Padres pitcher being called up and his whip per 9 innings over his exit velocity. And I'm like, I have no
You got the lingo down.
I know a couple of the terms. I'm sure I totally butchered that one right there. But yeah, names and faces and minor league affiliates that I've never heard of, right? Like I know Jackson Holiday. I saw that one recently. Yeah. Apparently he's absolutely raking, which was it the Ironbirds, who are the single A or the high A affiliate of the Orioles. So can't wait to see him in the show, as they say, probably a few years from now or a couple of years from now. But yeah, enjoy the rest of the baseball season in the summer, and we'll talk before you become a dad. But give your wife as much support as you can over these next few months here. You are in the home stretch, my friend.
Thank you so much, man. And I know people know where they can find you because you're Field Yates. So instead of asking that question, is there a charity that you are strongly associated with that any of our viewers, anybody, if they want to donate to that charity, they could do?
Well, we love the V Foundation at ESPN. We do a ton of work there for cancer research, and it's a long time relationship with ESPN, obviously inspired by Jim Valvano and his iconic speech about 31 years ago now. So that's always a place that's near and dear to our entire company's heart. And unfortunately, someone in everybody's life has been impacted by cancer. So any amount, small or large, certainly means a lot in that fight. And I appreciate you asking that.
Of course. And make sure you guys I'm sure you can just Google V Foundation. It'll pop right up. Right? Don't even
V.org. Yeah. V.org/donate. Easiest way to do it.
Perfect.
There you go.
All right. Field, you are the man. Thank you so much for joining me. Everybody that was in the comments or that's watching the streams, everybody that's tuning in, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel so you don't miss any new videos when they come out. Football, basketball, baseball, food, movies. We got it all here. Triple Play Fantasy. And until the next one, we'll catch you all soon.